Alright, where do I begin with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet 2077? Now, it's no surprise that once again we see another generation of Game Freak insolence, their laziness, their mediocrity, the bare minimum. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has all kinds of performance issues, bugs, glitches, less than 30 frames per second. We're not even talking about 60 fucking frames, and the games can't even manage half of that. Isn't it absolutely fucking amazing that Nintendo and friends will spend millions on advertising, but I can only imagine how much of that, along with any fucks given, go into their products. And that's exactly why I consider every modern main series Pokemon game a hustle project, not a passion project. Because Game Freak will waste millions advertising nothing more than a bundle of poorly performing, lazy, nostalgic, and bare minimum garbage. What sense does that make? Well, it's very simple. Game Freak already knows that they can effortlessly pump out these garbage products. So it makes more sense to them to do the bare minimum and advertise the fuck out of it, knowing that the ever so gullible fandom will eat that shit up without question because it's Pokemon. It's quantity and money. Remember those Nintendo 64 trees? Well, Game Freak just did all of you one better, and it's called the 9th generation of Pokemon so far. Rather than take my word for it when it comes to the performance alone, let's see a few highlights, shall we? Look at that stuttering all around this AAA title. Damn, did those trees just come out of nowhere? That's the beautiful thing about Pop-In. It was understandable and pretty much excusable maybe 30 years ago. It's a technique that game devs would use to make it easy for the memory and performance of the hardware and software respectively. That was back in the Super Nintendo, PS1, etc. days. Nowadays, it's inexcusable, but leave it to the ever so insolent Game Freak to cut corners with said technique. Listen up, Game Freak simps. It does not matter if people are looking for bugs, glitches, and the like. Whether you're playing Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl with patches or not, it doesn't excuse the fact that they are there. So imagine how fucking stupid you look pretending that it's the consumer's fault. And yeah, no shit, games from today and even 30 plus years ago are still filled with a lot of bugs and glitches. But that doesn't take away from the point, does it? Finding all kinds of apologies to excuse a AAA franchise, the highest grossing media franchise, from criticism isn't helping the product and incompetent game devs at all. It's crippling them even more to not give even more of a fuck. Don't just talk shit about Sonic Frontiers performing poorly. Don't talk about the Pop-In all over that game. It can also be considered a rail simulator in a lot of places, right? Well, why is it that every single other AAA title and AAA franchise gets to be criticized in the hopes that it will do better except Pokemon? I'll tell you why. It's because of the very same cocksuckers that are drumming up some kind of bullshit excuse to regurgitate right now as I speak, because they pretend that that very much needed criticism is some kind of personal attack. This is exactly why you get Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl.
But they're gonna release patches to fix all of the problems.
Yeah, but doesn't that defeat the purpose of buying a physical copy of a game to begin with? If they half-ass the product and leave the rest up to the memory on your Switch or your micro SD card, that's not them looking out for you. They do the bare minimum, you know, release a day one 3 gig patch, because Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl don't even have a title screen to begin with without it. As they release the rest of these games through subsequent patches, expect something similar with Scarlet and Violet. Hold on, wait for it. What the fuck is that? Did the damn textures on the ground just pop in? Just like you get these rough ass mountain, waterfall, etc. textures. What the fuck? Holy fuck, why are they allowed to get away with this shit? Look at the walls. Holy shit, they learned absolutely nothing from Sword and Shield's PS1 graphics. And what do the reviews have to say about all of that? I just love when these tools try so hard to downplay all of the problems that continue to persist in the highest grossing media franchise. Again, ladies and gents, this is exactly why Pokemon will never be held to a higher standard. Alright, now I'm going to talk about the other bad decisions Game Freak made made in Scarlet and Violet 2077. The forced experience share was a deal breaker for me when the games were first announced. I promised myself I would not be forced to play the game the way the devs want me to, with my own money that I am paying to secure my own fucking experience. There comes a point where you're just fed up. In a perfect world, if that were a thing on a massive level, Pokemon would go from the fake ass hero that it is to zero overnight. And the forced experience share is still a thing among many other not even questionable but downright fucking stupid things, not to mention inconsistent things that Game Freak did with these games. Pokemon is not other RPGs, is it? It's Pokemon. Do you have to raise hundreds of different creatures according to their stats through EV training? Because EV training is also another thing that comes with experience. Also, if you think you ever had to grind in a Pokemon game just to conquer any challenge, we're talking about Pokemon. It's not a matter of grinding, you geniuses. It's a matter of how much you can cheese any and everything with attacks like Double Team. You name it. So those arguments never held up. And as you can see, requests to play the game the way we want to once again fell on deaf ears. You can recall any move a Pokemon can learn, granted that they are at or above the level they would learn those moves, along with this very nifty and welcome option. In other words, you no longer need to worry about a prompt for a Pokemon to learn a move when they level up, and instead of going to a move relearner, you can relearn moves through the Pokemon themselves. But why can't I turn off the experience share? You know, all of this bullshit that Game Freak is pulling is just a reminder that there are way too many out of touch and narcissistic twats perfectly defining Game Freak. Their shitty mentality is abundant in these games. So these retards have a problem with us training Pokemon the way we want to for whatever reason. And this all goes to show you that they don't respect any of us. More on that later, let alone player's choice. This is some weird narcissism. We can't turn off the experience share, but we can skip the prompt for a Pokemon learning a move when it levels up. Where the fuck is the difference? They arbitrarily got rid of the set battle style option. We can also skip the prompt that asks us if we want to nickname a Pokemon when we receive it as a gift or catch it, and we can even choose to show or hide nicknames. But we can't turn off the animations. Not to mention the fact that the skip cutscenes option is still poorly implemented. Bravely Default would be a start when it comes to a proper implementation of quality of life aspects of all shapes, sizes, and colors. Game Freak needs to absorb immediately. Oh, and don't let me forget the 20-minute battle timer. They literally copied and pasted that from Sword, Shield, Brilliant Diamond, and Shining Pearl. How do you all feel about that? Explain to me why it's okay to gripe about the 20-minute battle timer, but we should just get over the forced experience share.
We are completely clueless to the actual criticism against the forced experience share, but will pointlessly argue in its defense.
That's you bobbleheads in a nutshell. But explain to me why it's a perfectly valid criticism for the 20-minute battle timer to be improved. All they have to do is turn it into a chess timer. Another thing worth mentioning is how they redacted TMs. This is yet another shitty game design that I am not feeling at all. I was suspicious of this when I first saw TRs in Sword and Shield. Why fix what isn't broken? You have the superior option that debuted in 5th gen where TMs became reusable. It makes much more sense to use a TM much like you could use an HM for countless applicable Pokemon when learning a move. What do they do starting in Sword and Shield? They create the stupid ass throwback to TMs prior to 5th gen. Now you could argue that unlike the earlier games where you only got one TM, you can replenish them because Game Freak's idea is to have you grind for these things. And with TRs, you can go to the move relearner and have the move relearner have the Pokemon relearn the move. But that's where it doesn't make any fucking sense. If they're worried about us grinding like the good old days, just like the fucking idiots who don't understand the criticism criticism against the forced experience share, then why the fuck is it okay to grind for TRs and TMs in Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Scarlet and Violet 2077? Again, with the hypocrisy and inconsistency. If people don't like grinding when it comes to training their party of Pokemon, they should not care to do the same grinding for TMs and TRs. You can't just roll back to a dumber game design and pretend that it's somehow better and even bearable than the superior option. If I can reuse TMs like I could in X, Y, Black 2, White 2, etc., why the fuck should I settle for grinding for TMs in Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, or either of these 2077 Pokemon games? And there's 171 of them at that. So all of these people who think they have an argument against the forced experience shit to begin with are really for an extremely tedious gameplay loop after all. And this sets the tone for all of the stupid ass discourse when it comes to Pokemon and why Pokemon will always be a hustle project, not be allowed to do and be better, let alone be allowed to be held to a higher standard in any kind of accountability like any other franchise out there. A lot of you fell for that. Congratulations. It's people like you that contribute to Pokemon's sad and soulless state. It's truly fucking sad that the highest grossing media franchise, despite all the money it makes, has no soul. That's not a good thing at all, Game Freak simps. That's some hollow ass shit. Think about it. We all have the same problem, don't we? You hate the 20-minute battle timer. I hate the forced experience share. They don't respect any of us, let alone players' choice. So why are you bobbleheads so quick to suck them off? Don't sit up here and talk about what other franchises do and how Pokemon has finally got on their level and pretend that's some kind of compliment and defense. Scarlet and Violet do absolutely nothing special in that regard. It goes both ways. You all drooled and fell for the open world ad that Game Freak kept on regurgitating, but other RPGs, children, have already mastered everything that Scarlet and Violet 2077 are struggling to do. Look forward to spending your allowance on the inevitable paid DLC that will offer more features that they should have and could have put in the base games. Oh yeah, Dexit is no better because you're gonna have to fuck around with all of the games from every single generation now, considering the fact that more and more of less of the total roster of Pokemon are going to be available to you in any given Pokemon games. When it comes to how much you're going to have to juggle your collection in that overpriced cloud service known as Pokemon Home. All of you are only the target audience because you're providing it effortless revenue.